The honest truth about Arcane Odyssey. Is the game good? Is it worth your time? Should you play Arcane Odyssey? All of these questions will be answered and more in this right now. The game is very popular as well, and for good reason. The short answer is that the game is great, but it is not going to be for everyone. Now, let me explain. My personal experience with Arcane Odyssey was great. I entered the game with an open mind and created my character I like to call Eli Anderson. That's what I gave him. The character creation was simple, but worked for the game. I first looked in on the first island. I'm not gonna lie, I was confused for like a good 10 minutes, but I eventually grasped what I was truly doing. But off the bat, I realized how wrong people were about the graphics of the game. In my opinion, I think the graphics work perfectly fine, and the game can sometimes look downright beautiful. No, the game does not have GPO or Project Slayer's graphics, but it doesn't need it because the landscapes in the islands are super detailed and interesting to explore. I never got tired of looking at these beautiful landscapes even after 20 hours of playtime. Now, the first location you will travel to is Redwake, an interesting place to start your adventure. I collected all side quests, which is what you should be doing when going to a spawn island. I immediately noticed 3 very cool features in the game. You can hire your own crew, fish, and even cook. It amazed me right then and there the amount of side things that would be in the game available to me, and this was only the first actual place you extensively explored. I also got an insight on how the story will play out. By the way, in this video, I will not be spoiling any story events. Back to the side stuff. So I spent maybe 3 hours actually fishing because surprisingly the fishing in the game was actually fun because you could receive some pretty cool fish to collect, and you could even fish a shark, which I was going for the whole time but didn't end up getting it at first. And also fishing does merit a whole bunch of XP. Now let's talk about the map exploration for a bit. Each island has its own task you must complete, whether that be collecting loot off the ground, looting chests, finding treasure maps, doing quests, talking NPCs, and other map objectives, of course, to keep the game fresh. And this actually encourages players to go out and actually explore, which I thought was really cool. It ended up being my favorite thing to do in the game over time, and that was 100%ing everything I could. Now back to the side missions and why I think that this game does side content very well. There is a solid amount of different missions to do, whether that be collecting fruit for a town, fishing, fighting sharks, and raiding pirate ships, finding treasure, and even beating bandits, which was actually fun in the game, unlike countless other One Piece games which seem to fail at side content for some reason or not have it at all. But Arcane Odyssey has the variety down to a T, and I really like that they allow you to repeat some of these missions because they are actually fun to do. Arcane Odyssey, in my opinion, has the best sea exploration out of any pirate-based game on Roblox, and it beats out every Roblox One Piece game on the market, hands down. You can argue that other games' exploration is better, but I prefer the simplicity of Arcane Odyssey, and I believe it to be the best at what it does and what it tries to be. Now, on to one of the most argued things about Arcane Odyssey, the combat. Now, the combat, in my opinion, is definitely the worst part of Arcane Odyssey, but it works, and I believe it is fine for what it is. Yes, it resembles Blox Fruit's combat, and yes, it is worse than a lot of other games, but Arcane Odyssey makes up for this combat by having some engaging bosses which are difficult to fight and allows for some interesting combat situations. However, it does sometimes feel like the spells don't work at times, maybe even bug out. I've had some times where the bosses simply don't work, and I have had times where my moves also don't work, and it seems as if sometimes the terrain around you works against you because it can become quite frustrating to fight bosses when you get stuck underground sometimes. But the game is in early access, and Vtex is working hard to make the combat as good as he can, but still, in my opinion, I do think that the combat is most definitely the worst part about the game. But for me, it doesn't bother me as much as other people because some people flat out just won't give the game a chance because of the combat, and I just think it isn't fair because the game is much more than just your basic bandit beater. And I think everyone, even if you don't like the combat, should give the game a genuine chance and play it through. Now, I want to briefly talk about the story of Arcane Odyssey without spoiling too much. Genuinely, I think Arcane Odyssey has one of, if not the greatest story on Roblox. To be honest, there isn't much competition, but Vtex and his team are indeed storytellers. Throughout the storyline, I was engaged with the characters and the events surrounding the game. I never skipped dialogue during the main story and the missions, and I always read through because I was genuinely engaged and surprised by how good the story was and how Vtex was able to build an immersive world around this game. I felt kind of attached to the characters, and the events felt cool and surprising, and it felt like I was actually playing a game outside of Roblox for the first time in years. Arcane Odyssey truly indeed does have a great storyline combined with other great elements as well, and it truly immerses you as soon as you start and even as you finish. Now I want to talk a bit about the looting system of Arcane Odyssey. There are a few different types of chests in the game. You have sailor, silver, golden, and armor and weapon chests, etc. These chests are probably, as you guessed, all feature different levels of loot. In my opinion, it works for this game. You will be receiving tons of loot depending on how often you go out and actually explore the world that the game presents you. I find my inventory being very full after a few trips out at sea, which I think is amazing because it encourages me to go out and explore different islands. In my opinion, the loot system is a W. Even though I hate when you sometimes explore an island and get baited into thinking there's some good loot there, but it just ends up being a common chest and you have to and it trolls you, but it's all good. Speaking of tons of loot, you can get tons of like vanity stuff, and the vanity system is actually really good in this game. Since some of the loot may not be to your liking, I found myself using this feature very often to make my character look like how I want him to look. Now that we have talked a bit about the looting, I want to talk about the weapons and armor you may receive throughout your journey in Arcane Odyssey. Types of armor you may get may come enchanted with different buffs such as power increases, attack speed, agility, defense, attack, size, intensity, and probably more, which I think adds a sense of variety to the armor system in the game, which I really like. Weapons also have enchantments as well, which can buff their damage, attack speed, attack size, and on the ranged weapon side it can buff the damage, reload time, range multiplier, and attack size. Of course, you can also upgrade the weapons as well, and there's a lot of unique weapons in the game ranging from daggers to great hammers and several ranged weapons. Now I want to talk about the bosses of Arcane Odyssey and why I think they are brilliant in design. The bosses you encounter in Arcane Odyssey up until around level 50 are indeed pushovers for the most part until you get to Lord Elias. Elias is if you've played Arcane Odyssey, is like he's hell bro to go against. Many have figured out ways to beat him, but with his teleportation tricks he's a very difficult boss to beat, especially solo. I am personally fine with this because the boss fights in this game even have second modes, which provide the player with engaging bosses and super cool moments in the game. I don't want to spoil too much of the bosses, but I indeed do think that Vtex definitely cooked up some cool boss fights. Another feature of this game is being able to be a villain or a hero, which I think is a W feature of this game for sure. You can become a hero or a villain in various ways in the game, as you could have guessed. Now people have argued that the system has flaws, especially when you are a villain, since you can't talk to certain NPCs, and the balance between hero and villain can definitely be noticed. But just the simple fact that you're able to choose who you want to be in the game just makes the game 10 times more immersive and interesting because of the different paths you can go. Another feature of Arcane Odyssey that is super cool is a ship and crew system. In Arcane Odyssey, you can recruit various ship members onto your crew who will make your ship stronger and more durable against the vast seas and pirates you will fight. Personally, I think the ship system being inspired by Assassin's Creed is very enjoyable and cool to see. I do, however, have some issues with it. The combat is sometimes very hard to control with the cannons sometimes bugging out and not wanting to fire sometimes. I wish that the crew actually fought with you and raided pirate ships as well, just like in Assassin's Creed. And the most annoying thing of all is when trying to transport cargo. Your ship will sometimes just bug out completely and fly everywhere, which is a glitch I definitely hope gets fixed soon. But all in all, the ship and naval combat is levels above all Roblox One Piece games, and I think it is one of the highlights of Arcane Odyssey. Now I want to quickly talk a little bit about the small details I noticed about Arcane Odyssey. The traversal of this game is heavily inspired by Assassin's Creed's free running system, where your character will be able to parkour over objects and use pillars as stepping stones to continue your adventure. The game has multiple characters inspired by One Piece, and even the sea curses are inspired by the devil fruits of One Piece. There are multiple features in this game, such as the Order of Asir, which are inspired by the newer Assassin's Creed games. Vtex also said he was inspired by Zelda, Sea of Thieves, Elden Ring, and Fairy Tail. If there are more interesting and neat little details you notice, make sure you put them in the comments. Now I want to talk about the builds of Arcane Odyssey. Now I personally went with a full cold damage mage build, but there are other builds you can go that merit different bonuses such as Conjurer, Berserker, Warlock, Mage, and I think Warrior. Each of the classes merit different awakenings, and not gonna lie, some of the classes are better than others, but still I think being able to create your own class and get different awakenings and special abilities for each is really cool in my opinion. I think more games should add this class system for sure. I do, however, think that the class system has its problems, especially since certain classes are worse than others as of right now, since certain features are not yet in the game. For example, Savant's awakening is way worse than all the other awakenings in the game, since you have to split your magic and fighting style stats with other stats to even get this build in its awakening, which gives you an extra fighting style or magic ability, but the magic and fighting style will not have all of its moves. Also, putting vitality into your build is basically pointless, since going vitality decreases your strength and is basically useless as of right now, since you can obtain armor that increases your health, and you could just level up to increase your health as well. But those are just some of my gripes with this system, but overall I think it's a good system. Now I want to talk about the monetization and why I applaud VTech for now outright being greedy for microtransactions as of right now. The game has basically all cosmetic game passes, and none of them merit you a significant bonus over someone else, which I definitely commend VTech and his team for doing, because they could have easily paywalled certain things such as ship recruitment, XP boost, but they didn't, and I am really happy that you chose this route. Not gonna lie, I like this game so much that I'm willing to drop dollars on it for sure, but I am glad that VTech and his team are simply passionate about making games instead of wanting to milk as much money out of players as possible. I'm looking at you, countless One Piece games. But that is my conclusion to the honest truth about Arcane Odyssey, my personal review of the game. I think Arcane Odyssey is indeed, after playing over 20 hours, is my favorite Roblox game of it right now. I didn't go into detail about certain things because I want you to experience this beautiful game for yourself. Now go out and enjoy the Odyssey and the adventure. But as I say in the video, if you guys enjoyed this video and you want to like to see more content like this on the channel, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.